Behold, one of the most famous monuments in the entire world, the Eiffel Tower. Standing at 300 meters tall and a little bit taller even with the antenna right now. This was built by Gustav Eiffel for the 1889 World's Exposition. And today we're going to just walk around and admire this beautiful structure that we see over here. Oh, that hurts. Very sharp, watch out. Let me know where you're watching from. I'm Ariel, this is Urbanist, and right now we are in Trocadero Plaza. This is the place to see the Eiffel Tower in all of its glory. It's really packed during the middle of the day, but if you come here like at sunrise, I think you'll have an easy time taking photos. A lot of people also come here at night and sunset. And of course, this is the place where John Wick 4 scene took place in. It was where they had the meeting of where they would do, I won't even spoil the movie, but there was a meeting that took place here in the film. Great film if you want to see something that takes place in Paris. Let me know where you're watching from, and today we're going to admire the beautiful Eiffel Tower. I just love this monument. It's so gorgeous, and to think that it was set for demolition back in 1909, and that's right. It was only supposed to survive a little bit less than 30 years. However, the Parisian government and the French government found use for it for radio transmission. And that's why it actually ended up surviving to this day. Ended up becoming extremely important during both world wars, and then especially as now one of the most visited monuments in the entire world, more than 7 million people. David says, beautiful place, John Wick, exactly, yeah, that's right. Manny, ¿cómo estás? Extrañaba tu español. Oh, sí, claro. Manny says he misses my Spanish. I'll do a little bit of Spanish for all of you. Este es el monumento más famoso en el mundo, construido para la exhibición internacional de 1889 y era construido por el ingeniero Gustav Eiffel, que construyó la Estatua de Libertad en Nueva York antes de construyendo este monumento, que para en 300 metros. Por mucho tiempo era el monumento más alto en el mundo hasta que se construyó el edificio Chrysler in New York. So this was actually the tallest monument in the entire world for a few decades, beating the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C., until it was beaten by the Chrysler Building in 1929. Hey, Netogino says, you're on a trip. Where are you going this time? I am going so far here in Paris. You'll stay tuned for the rest of the trip. There's one hint I already gave on the previous live video. So if you're paying attention, check out that previous live video. Maybe you'll figure out what the next destination is. Patricia says, great to see you, especially in Paris. Have you encountered any scammers? Not me personally. I don't get too targeted for scams too often in Europe, mostly because I do blend in. But I have seen scammers right now at this very moment. You see one common scam you see here is selling those little Eiffel Towers. The guy will come up to a family, I just saw him earlier, come up to a family that looks typically American or typically like English or not from France, gives them the tiny little Eiffel Tower for free. The family starts walking away thinking they just got free souvenirs, and he approaches them again and he upsells them to buy a bigger Eiffel Tower and more forcibly that second time around. So do watch out. Don't submit yourself to being sold very hard for a very expensive metal Eiffel Tower. You can buy probably a better quality one at many souvenir stores, I assume. So we have some Spice Girls being played. So here is Trocadero. I love this beautiful type of architecture here. Reminds me a lot of the architecture that you see in Italy, built around the 1930s. Hey Sylvia, nice to see you here. It's barely 4 a.m. where you live, really? That early? Let's admire the Trocadero a little bit more. Are there still protests at like a lake? I have not encountered protests at all. There are specific areas in the city where protests are still ongoing, but nowhere near the scale as they probably were a month or two ago. So they're mostly just limited to 2 or 3 specific areas that are not really in the main touristy areas. It's an area called Republique. It's one of them, which is similar to Union Square in New York City. So if you hear of it, then just avoid it. But generally, you won't encounter being here in these major destinations. Susie says, don't be fooled into buying the Eiffel Tower. That either, yeah. Don't be fooled to buy the full Eiffel Tower. It isn't for sale. It's been a while. Nice to see you again, says Lenigus. Hey, Nova, welcome. Hello, TJ. Ryan says the protests were against raising the retirement age from 62 to 64. Indeed it was. That's one of the main concerns. Trocadero, that's here we see the namesake. If I'm correct, the Trocadero is the bullfighter. Do let me know. I think that's the meaning in Spanish. Beautiful monument here of a bullfighter. Love this type of architecture. Hey, Nola says, good to be joining you. Good to be joining you too, Nola. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hello, Roy. I just went this May to Paris. I'm so happy you did. Nola's watching from Alabama. Welcome, Nola from Alabama. Nice to see you here. I'm posting 2 short videos about the history of the Eiffel Tower. Stay tuned. Thanks for answering my question, says Alike. Did you take the metro? Yes, I'm basically taking the metro for anywhere I go. Ubers here can get expensive. Not as expensive as New York City, but still more expensive than other countries in Europe. So the metro is a very inexpensive way to get around. Let's actually go through here. Hold the Eiffel Tower in your palm, says Susie. All right, just gonna take it home. Oh, it's a bit slippery. It's a bit too slippery. There's no way. It's standing too erect. It's a bit heavy. Can't lift it up. I think it's kind of stuck there. Hello, Sylvia says, what a view. Indeed it is. It's a gorgeous view. So all of this was built for the World Exposition in 1889, one of the World's Fair. The official name was the Exposition Universelle, something along those lines. Lengus says, I've never been to Paris before, but I heard people who've been there said that the locals were rude and Paris was dirty. You know, I came to Paris, first time I ever came was a bit more than 10 years ago. Actually, so almost this time, 10 years ago. And my experience initially was that, yes, it was indeed dirty. It was indeed dirty, and it was very grimy. Grimier than even I was used to in New York City. Yeah, it was grimy. But then when I came here, 2019, it significantly changed. And that's still the case today. It's very clean. It's cleaner than even New York in many contexts. It's not as spick and span as some other countries I've been to, say maybe Stockholm or Copenhagen, or parts of Italy as well that are very, very clean. The streets are immaculate. Nice, France is also pretty immaculate, also with the actual pavement on the streets and the concrete and everything. But here, yeah, it's pretty clean. It's not as clean as those countries, but still way cleaner than most American cities, unfortunately. And in terms of rudeness, it's a cultural difference. There's not that much of a culture of smiling to give you the best service. In America, it's a bit complicated, but generally in America, we tend to smile for politeness, not necessarily because we mean it. That's the main difference between America and many European countries, almost everywhere in Europe. The second difference is that we in America tend to give service also to get a tip. In Europe, most countries pay their waiters and their staff behind the counter a full wage, so they are not reliant on tips. So there's not much of an incentive to give one customer or the other the best service possible or the smiliest service possible. Also, there's not that much, the third reason, there's one more after this, is that there's not much of a rush in France. And this is the case also with countries like Italy and Greece and Turkey. There's not much of a rush. So in America, unfortunately, when you're dining out or even going to any typical business, a shop, there's a sense of like, you gotta do this quick. Time is money. And that's very much the essence of many parts of America. Definitely the case in the East Coast. So when you're eating at a restaurant, you generally only have about an hour and they'll kick you up. They'll put the check on the table and it's kind of saying, hey, it's time to go. In America, you can't really order a beer and just sit down for an hour in many restaurants. Here you can. And that's why with less rush, on the onset, if you're not used to this culture, you might think they're being rude because they're not being attentive. But it's not the actual, what you might be interpreting as lack of attentiveness is actually just the waiter or the staff or the shop owner just letting you be. And the fourth reason, lastly, is this one is very key, but seems so simple that most people overlook. In America, you can walk into any shop and you just walk in. However, in France, and this is very particular French, I have not encountered this too much in other countries, you have to say hello. In this case, bonjour or bonsoir, depending on the time of day, but you have to greet the person in any space you're walking into. Might be a shop, a restaurant, you have to greet the waiter. Even if you're not expecting to order immediately, you have to greet the waiter. In the bakery, you have to greet the person behind the counter. You always have to greet the person. If you're entering a bus, greet the bus driver. Bonjour. It's very necessary. And if you greet the person, you're probably going to get way better service moving forward. But if you don't, you start the interaction off on a bad foot. And French people tend to interpret that as you being rude. You're the rude one, as the American not saying bonjour when you walk into the store. That is the main difference. So be sure to always say bonjour. And the more sing-songy you say bonjour, actually it tends to be a little bit more familiar, more nicer. So rather than just bonjour, then that might be a little bit more familiar. But that's the main difference. I think that's why people encounter Parisians rude. But if you do those things, keep in mind those cultural differences, you'll be way better off and you're going to encounter way better service in Paris and the rest of France. Joshua says, be kind, doesn't hurt. Yeah, kindness is very important. And genuine kindness that you mean. There's a bit of a bigger bullshit meter in France than there is in the States. In the States, you can BS your way to being nice, but here in France and many other countries in Europe, you can't BS your way. No Name says your sunglasses look nice. Oh, thank you so much, No Name. Appreciate that. Malcare says, speak to the couple looking at the Eiffel Tower. I really don't do interviews in the middle of the street. So you might need to find another live streamer that does that more. Never been my style. Who talks to, I don't like talking to people, you know. I don't travel to talk to people. I travel to admire the buildings. Who talks to people? Also, you gotta watch out. In some cultures, That is not so normal. In American culture, you can just chat up someone. Some areas of the U.S. more than others. New York, it's fairly normal to chat up someone. The South and the Midwest, it's very normal. You can just easily chat out or chat someone up or say hello, greet someone randomly. But here in France, not really. Unless if you're sitting at a cafe, if the space is appropriate for it, then yes. Otherwise, you're not really chatting people up. In the subway, in the metro, you don't really chat someone up. Emily says talking is overrated. Well, in Sweden, that's even more the case. You really do not talk to random people. Even there's no small talk in Sweden. So yeah, some cultures are more than others. I would put France in the middle of the spectrum of talkativeness. They're not as chatty, but they're not. If you get to know them, they'll become very chatty. Nova says not in Philly. Philly, you can't just randomly chat someone up. Yeah, it depends on the culture. Seattle, you can't. There's parts of America, it's also taboo. I remember Seattle, there was really no small talk, no chatting with anyone. Andy says, am I in Paris? Yes. MZ says, thank you for the bonjour tip. Yeah, very important. A lot of people just overlook that because it just seems so simple. However, it's just so crucial. Joyce says, do you speak? No parlez-vous français? No, I don't really speak French. All right, here's another scan. We're seeing it right with these guys. They're playing the cup game. I'm not sure what this is called, but beware, those guys will swindle you out of your money if you are the gambling type. Wuhan says, I'm clearly in Vegas. Yeah. I'm in the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas on the Strip. Here's a beautiful park. You know, I usually go down this way. Watch my previous videos. I have like at least 3 videos where I wander this area of Paris. If you want to see more of the plaza, but let's take a detour here on this trip on this beautiful park. Marshall says, can you go up to the tower? You know, tickets are sold out. It's a big bummer. They're sold out, and I'm sad. But I may feature at least going into the Eiffel Tower because it's easier to get tickets for the second level, which is the middle of the tower. So stay tuned for that potentially. Malcare says, you also have to say au revoir or bonne journée when leaving a store. Au revoir means goodbye, bonne journée means have a good day. Yeah, that's also a good pro tip. It's being very polite. Tutu Harry says, this is a great day for a picnic. It really is. This is a normal thing also in Paris, is people picnicking in the parks casually. People do it for lunch. People do it hanging out with a friend. This is just a chill thing to do. Hey, Mighty Bull, nice to see you here. Margaret says, I've been to 11 countries, but never France. It's been on my list for so long. I hope you do come to France. It is a beautiful country to visit. Don't be deterred by people saying that's very rude country. It's not really. Don't be deterred also by it being super touristy. Yes, Paris is the most visited city in the entire world, but it is worth visiting. For good reason, it is extremely popular. Bonjour. No. Au revoir. A random guy was saying, hey, can I take a photo with you? But it was Snapchat, so I was like, oh no. So here we have what are cherry blossoms. However, they're no longer on They've turned a dull brown, like the Eiffel Tower. Eiffel Tower originally was actually painted pink. Hey, Wendy says, you honestly hit Seattle at a slow time. I have had many conversations with people in Seattle. July and August are totally busy months. Oh, Wendy, thank you for clarifying. Is it more of a weather thing, or are people a little bit more introverted in the winter months over there in Seattle? Because yeah, that was what I encountered. And I did plenty of live videos where we kind of seen those interactions. What's the money exchange rate, says Mighty Bullish? About $1.10 for every €1. Hey, no one says, if you have time, visit La Petite Bouillon Farmont. It will be right up your alley. Okay, I'll look into that. What is that? Do let me know. I understand sometimes people have to really keep track of the money that they're spending. However, I would say there's few reasons not to get so stressed when you're visiting the European Union in terms of the exchange rate. It's very close to the US dollar, but beyond that, if you're used to American prices, America has gotten extremely expensive, especially in the major cities like New York City, Seattle, Chicago, and I would speculate even LA. But here, things are less expensive generally. So food is less expensive, or at least in France and Paris specifically. Food is less expensive, a pastry is less expensive, coffee is usually €110, about half or a third of the price of coffee in New York City. A lot of things are way less expensive. Even monuments tend to be less expensive than New York City counterparts. So I would say don't stress too much about budget, because you won't be spending as much as you would in a New York City trip. Or if you're from Scandinavia, you're probably spending a lot more in Scandinavia. Sean says, are you staying curious? I am indeed staying curious. Ryan says, prices have increased much more in the US than in Europe. Yep. Unfortunately, that's the case. And that is very evident also with grocery shopping. At 50 cents, 75 cents. In America now, 150. Hey, Kenya says, am I also on Facebook? Yeah, I am. The West Coast is so expensive, says Dothmala. Yeah, unfortunately. Can you visit the memorial for Princess Diana while you're there? Yeah, you know, I actually might make a short video about Princess Diana. Stay tuned. Do you get a good deal on your flight? No. You know, it used to be cheaper prior to the pandemic. I ended up spending quite a lot, $1,500, $1,400 for a round trip flight. 2 different cities though, but yeah, cost me quite a bit. I used Delta Airlines. Delta was pretty much in line with other airlines, so even the budget ones like Norse Airways. So I always decide to go for Delta because Delta makes it easier to switch times. Very easy to modify your trip, which is awesome, and they usually don't charge more. Sometimes they might even charge you less, so you get credits. And the other reason I like Delta is that there's free checked luggage, so you don't need to pay extra for checked luggage. I didn't check luggage this time around, but if I'm traveling for more than a month, I usually do, just for the ease of having a bigger suitcase. We're getting closer to the Eiffel Tower. Let's enjoy it. For purchases over €100 in the EU, ask for tax-free paperwork. Hey, Jenny's tuning in. Jenny in transit, she's tuning in on Facebook right now. Was a live streamer. She doesn't do it so much anymore, but she still travels the world, writes about it, and she's giving a good pro tip saying that you can actually get taxes back for certain purchases over €100. That's right. It's very good in terms of if you're shopping for clothes, which is probably the case where a lot of people would if they're shopping over here, or like luxury goods. Yeah, you'll get the tax back. So, and it's very easy to do that. So make sure when you go to the store, ask the store ahead of your purchase saying, hey, do you guys do the tax rebate form? Most of them will say yes, especially brands that are a little bit more higher end. And when you go to the airport, I'm not sure if it's the train station as well, but if you go to the airport, you can just put the tax rebate into a mailbox, I think, and you'll get the return either directly to your card or via mail. Now, another thing to keep in mind if you're shopping, I know some people love to travel to France specifically because it's the capital of luxury goods. Some of the most famous brands of luxury designers are here: Chanel, Dior, many others. If you're coming here for that, keep in mind that you'll get cheaper prices here. The import tax for luxury goods to the US is way more expensive, so you'll end up getting better deals here in general. And also menswear that's not like designer clothes, but just normal menswear also tends to be cheaper here in Paris than in New York City, and for better quality. Ooh, I want to be in that boat. Hey, Jenny says, look at your new fancy chore coat. What a great purchase. Yes, I ended up getting the famous French shore jacket, Le Bout Travail. That's the name of it in French. It means the blue work clothes. And the one I purchased is a historically accurate one. So yeah, I ended up getting a historically accurate blue shore jacket. This is the original blue that they made it in back in the day. Usually this indigo color. I think it might get lighter over age, so that's why you see sometimes people with a lighter blue. And I got it from a historic company that was based since 1913. Used to make them originally for the men in factories, mechanics, and whatnot. And so it's the layer. And American workwear, they tend to be made with polyester. Oh, beautiful. Here we have the Seine. Oh. See me, hear me. I'll continue walking around.